Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. Always a pleasure and a privilege when we get together for these updates. It's become something that we've counted on to be able to decipher through many of the things that are going on in the earth at the same time. Welcome to everyone that's joining us from around the earth. We certainly are glad you stopped by. Thanks for popping in. And one of the things that we decided to do several years ago was a weekly news update so that we wouldn't be, as we like to say, we wouldn't be overwhelmed, be informed without being overwhelmed. A very big theme around here because we don't want to let the enemy steal our joy, steal our shalom, right? So we have to be careful with that because too much news and too much information, it's just TMI. It's too much, right? And so we need to be careful with how much we let in. And that's why we do these weekly. It's not because we're not still aware of things going on throughout the week. It's not that we're not aware of it. It's not that we're not, somewhat aware of things that are happening. It's just that we just have too many other things that we're focused on as a body, right? We have to do the things we're called to do as we see the day approaching. And then periodically we stop and we say, let's take a look at where we are in light of Bible prophecy, in light of events that are unfolding. And not always can we interpret these things directly. I got a note from someone that said, hey, you're just kind of sharing some of your thoughts, but some of these things really don't necessarily pertain to a particular scripture. And that's true. There are times when, there are some things that pertain directly, other things that we're kind of piecing together as we walk, right? So as we see things, we're going, hey, is this what that meant? So I think this is something we do together. And I'm very grateful for the feedback, though. So it doesn't always have to be positive, either. If you have feedback and you can find a way to make the broadcast better, well, by all means, do so. And definitely encourage us in the way that we could improve, right? So very grateful for that. So thank you to those who give feedback and take the time. We certainly appreciate that. And we're certainly grateful for remnantwatch.com. It is a labor of love and provided, of course, by the members of Remnant House. And so we're very grateful for those of you who have remained faithful and continue to shine light in the darkness. And Remnant Watch is, of course, a labor of love where we put all the stories that we talk about each week, and you'll find them here as a fairly quick reference. And of course, you've got a nice comfy search bar there in case you get a little lost or you're watching an older broadcast. You can go back and pick up some of the older things. Thank you, brother, for that encouragement. And you can pick up those things and you can catch up if you're trying to catch up or maybe double checking some stories. So we're glad that resource is there, and we certainly want to encourage you to use it wherever you can. And on that note, let's get into the news. We've got a lot to cover tonight, and the EU is threatening the United States with a full trade war. I don't know if you knew that, but the EU says it will retaliate immediately if Trump imposes new tariffs. So this tariff thing is really starting to heat up. Bloc leaders also pledged to protect EU interests after U.S. president announces escalation in aggressive trade policy. Now, personally, I think this is a long time coming. I've been watching this for some time, and the United States has been everyone's piggy bank. So it is interesting to see as you start to ask them to step up why they don't like it so much. Isn't that interesting? Europe will not hesitate to retaliate if Donald Trump imposes any new tariffs, the European Commission and EU national leaders have said after the U.S. president announced another escalation of his aggressive trade policy at the weekend. Trump said he would announce on Monday 25% tariffs. Look at that, guys, on all steel and aluminum imports that would affect everybody, adding that reciprocal tariffs on all countries that tax imports from the U.S. would follow on Tuesday or Wednesday. So let me see if I got this right. He basically said, yeah, I have to agree with you, David. A bunch of self-entitled brats. Let me see if I got this right. He's announced reciprocal tariffs. You know what reciprocal tariffs are? That means what you tariff us, we're going to tariff you, right? That just means that whatever you're doing, we're doing back to you. So Isn't that funny how when you give people back the very thing that they do to you, they suddenly get offended? Have you noticed that a few times? I've noticed that, and that people don't like what you give them when you give them what they give you. It's interesting. And I think we're watching this on an international scale going, wait a minute. And anybody that's ever called someone out on that and went, wait a minute, you've all been through that, right? So here we are again with another one of those situations. And of course, trying desperately to get us going in the wrong direction. And they want to continue to take advantage of the United States. And who can blame them? I mean, they look at the U.S. as, oh, you guys have it. You can afford it, Meanwhile, we got the biggest debt in the world, right? So it's a good thing somebody's finally saying, let's reconcile the books. Let's double check the double check, right? And we certainly are grateful for all of you that are here with us doing exactly that, saying, hey, wait a minute, let's ask some harder questions. And, some people are saying that Trump over here is playing some, I don't know, financial chess. This is kind of interesting. Trump's global financial chess, the Mar-a-Lago Accord, set to redefine international debt. Is this perhaps what they're all reacting to? Is that he's got himself a plan? President Trump plans to restructure international debt via the Mar-a-Lago Accord, converting foreign-held U.S. Treasury debt into ultra-long-term securities to reduce annual debt service payments and mitigate financial crisis risk. Genius. Absolutely brilliant. The accord, named after Trump's Florida state, aims to manage the $31 trillion in U.S. national debt. Well, it really should just jubilee. So if they're trying to avoid the jubilee, well, then the one way they could do that is by just extending it to such a degree that it basically becomes moot. That's one way they could do a jubilee for themselves without doing one for you. That's why we have to call the Avenger of the Jubilee, because he won't let them cheat. And so we have to call our king to deal with this. And so we're going to see more and more in the future on this topic, but just a little shot across the bow. So you're paying attention to the things that are happening. And remember that there are prophecies in the scripture of one who comes in peaceably, but it doesn't end that way. So just pay attention to what we're seeing. All right. So that is a big scripture being fulfilled in Daniel here. Now, switching to the Middle East real quick, I want to talk about this really quickly. I want to just get this out because this is some serious stuff that's going on here. I don't want to make we honestly don't know what we're even looking at here, honestly, because so much happened. But the report that is coming out now from Israel, and again, this is devastating to the current regime there. And I don't think this is going to go away. And we saw this last October. No, not this past October, the October before. And we're very concerned with what we saw. And now this report came out. This was actually out a little more than a week ago. But look what the title of this report is. It says the army was ordered to, you read that right? Are you reading that right? Are you reading that right? Are you reading that right? Is the defense minister confirming this? That's not good. We knew this. We had questions, right? We had questions about the 7th of October and what had occurred there. But never did we see this level of confirmation. So, guys, expect this situation to ripen a bit. And I do believe that the Middle East is going to move into center stage in a very big way in the near term here. So there is a lot that is happening right now. Yes, Jonathan, that is true. There is an audit going on. And Israel's Ben-Gvir, he came out against Netanyahu and calls Gaza's ceasefire deal a historic mistake. So not everybody's happy with what's going on. And the deal prevents Israel from achieving a total victory, according to Ben-Gvir. So some of these folks really did want to do a full extermination. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Former Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir launched a scathing attack on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday, calling a Gaza ceasefire deal a historic mistake. And so again, This deal, it says, the deal prevents Israel from achieving a total victory, and every passing day proves that my opposition to the agreement was justified, he claims. Now, for those that wanted total annihilation, well, yeah, any deal is going to be a problem. But again, this is obviously becoming very. The international community is getting more and more involved here. And as I told you guys, careful, with the Trump plan, because Trump, he's clever and he knew how to move people. So what happened? As soon as he starts threatening and moving things, guys start wanting that. They're having conferences now. Now they're talking about how to solve this problem. Now they're talking about how to write their checks. Well, all you had to do was call it the Riviera of the Middle East, and all of a sudden everybody wants to do something about it. Very, very clever and very smart. Provoke them, get them to do what is right. I think that's intelligent, regardless. But I do think that it is time for the Middle East to be done with this issue. The Palestinian issue has been sort of a sore spot that has continued. And so it is time for that to get resolved, for sake of the children, for sake of the families, for sake of those that now have to live in bombed out buildings. Folks, this is not okay. And nor is it okay for those who did that to just come in and take the property. That's not okay either. So something has to happen here. Be interesting to watch how it unfolds. Continue to pray, though, for the families, for the Kodashim, for the remnant. There are believers in there. There are your brothers and sisters in there. All right. There are some in Gaza. Some of them truly are believers in Mashiach. So just know that. So just, keep them in prayer, because, man, I can't even imagine what their life must be like in that situation right now. And of course, there are other parts of the country, or around the world rather, that are just as messed up. North Carolina is one of them. So we're not done yet. We need to continue to have mercy and pray for mercy for those that are in serious, serious harm's way. And moving to Zelensky, of course, the middle and the Eastern European theater. And of course, this thing should have wound up a long time ago, but they've drug it on. And Zelensky calls for an army of Europe. Okay, well, nobody's listening to you anymore, bud. And they talk about this stuff, but how do we know that the army of Europe would take years to develop and is no threat to Russia anytime soon? So, they can talk all they want, but this is the reality. And to take on Russia without a U.S., as Trump urges him to take a deal with Putin. So now he wants to, we need another army. Give me some other option. There are no other options. This should have been over. It should have never allowed to be started. It only continued because the Americans the American administration wanted to support it. And so now we're seeing that it is literally falling apart. Take a look at that article on remnantwatch.com, and I'm sure that you'll have some thoughts about that. Unfortunately, the damage is very clear. I mean, as you look at the articles, you look at the different pictures and the damage that they're suffering, they can't win this war. So it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin, he's easing up because he thinks he may have to take on big guns, right? So dire Vlad threat, bombshell spy intel, which he warned. He did warn everyone, reveals that Putin's arming for a large-scale war. So he's not arming just for Ukraine. He expects to have to do battle with the world. And this is a difficult challenge, okay? It's not long until he can strike, according to this report. So a dire warning has been issued by Vladimir Putin, is looking to start a major war in Europe within 5 years, according to a bombshell spy intel. So they're trying to get Europe in a certain framework. Intelligence from Denmark. What's up with Denmark? Okay, here we go. Intelligence from Denmark has assessed the Russian despot's military capacity, claiming he could be ready to spark wars with neighboring regions in months ahead of a full-scale attack on NATO. Okay, and so, of course, they want to stoke this because that justifies spending over here on military and all of those things. So they have to keep those companies in business. Remember, those companies employ thousands of people. And if they go out of business, if they are no longer there, that all those people now have to come into the economy. So even if they have to bluff, they're still going to send the money and build bullets. I'm just telling you, that ain't going anywhere anytime soon. We haven't gotten to the point yet we're ready to beat our swords into plowshares. Hopefully, that won't be too much longer, okay, because this is getting old. And Ukraine is prepared, so blubber all you want. Ukraine is prepared to offer territory to swap with Russia, according to Zelensky. So again, not happy about it, but is Ukraine will offer to swap territory. So weren't we talking about that like a year ago? So everybody that died from last year to this year, when they could have done the same swap of territory, you see this? Those were the same terms a year ago, but now a bunch of other people died, so we could come back to a table and do the exact same thing we would have done a year ago. Tell me again how that makes sense. It just doesn't. I know it bugs me. War bugs me. Vladimir Zelensky said in an interview published Tuesday, adding that Europe alone would not be able to shoulder Kiev's war effort. So again, Zelensky will meet Vice President J.D. Vance on Friday at the Munich Securities Conference. The Ukrainian leader's spokesman told AFP as Washington pushes for an end to the nearly 3-year war with Russia. And I do expect it to terminate without the United States sending them bullets and sending them support. It is what it is. That doesn't change the scripture. That doesn't change the prophecies. It just means this particular conflict can end and we can move on to other conflicts because you think they're done. I mean, he told us that there would be war and rumors of war. And I don't think he meant it in the normal sense because there are always been certain wars, but these rumors of wars are scary beyond normal rumors of war, right? World War III, for example, the prospect of that is extremely intimidating. And so, and yet there are those who seem to be sort of running toward it. I don't get it. I honestly don't. Here's Starmer saying, I'm ready to and willing to put British troops in Ukraine. The Prime Minister of Britain, his announcement puts pressure on European leaders to do the same at a summit in Paris. And so, again, very tough talk. Sir Keir Starmer has announced he is willing and ready to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine to enforce any peace deal. In an exclusive article for The Telegraph, the Prime Minister said he had not taken the decision to consider putting British servicemen and women in harm's way lightly. And so now we know that there are things being uncovered, like what Jonathan just posted, biolabs and all kinds of other things that may connect with, I don't know, P. Diddy and his buddies, right? So there may be some P. Diddy activity, let's just call it that, going on in Ukraine. And we're waiting to see some of that come out, some of those receipts coming out, because methinks thou doth protest a little too much. And we've been very suspicious of what we will find when this is over. In the meantime, it continues to be a massive threat to just regular people. Russia's drone strikes Chernobyl. So most of you don't remember this. Some of you that are older will remember how devastating Chernobyl was. Chernobyl was a nuclear power plant that had a meltdown. And so it is a protected area. And a Russian drone struck the containment shell protecting the radioactive reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, causing significant damage, Ukraine claimed Friday morning. So again, who's claiming this? Well, Ukraine is. And have they been guilty of telling the truth? Or have they been known to not tell the truth? Sometimes. Sometimes. So we don't really know who did that, right? The protective covering that was placed around the reactor 4 in 2016 sustained a large hole from an unmanned craft. Okay. And they say Russia did it. And again, a lot of these things we don't know. We don't know if Russia did it or not. But we do know is that if that starts to leak radioactivity and affect the area around it, who's going to be the victims? Well, people that live nearby. So once again, innocent people are going to be hurt by these things. And it's very, very tragic. That's why we want to continue to pray, folks, for the end of all this stuff, for the day of the book of Isaiah prophesies when we beat our swords into plowshares. Let's continue to pray for that day to come. Amen. And until then, we're going to continue to see those who monger war. That's what the scripture calls them, warmongers. People who think war is an answer to their problem. And they get a little gleeful about the notion of dropping bombs or hurting other people. This is very, very disturbing stuff. And here we see a headline that Netanyahu vows to, quote, finish the job against Iran with support from Trump. So if you think this is over in the Middle East, you are mistaken. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed on Sunday to, quote, finish the job, end quote, against Iran with the support of U.S. President Donald Trump. Netanyahu was speaking alongside U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is visiting Israel in his first official trip to the region since assuming the role. And so we see that what we've got going on here is a plan. And this plan was outlined a long time ago. And we even knew who they would be attacking. And we even knew who they would be fighting with and what their purpose would be and what they would want destroyed at the same time so they could release the nihilists. Yeah, they wrote all this out, all of it. All this you're seeing, a lot of this was written out. And so that we would then accept the doctrine of Lucifer when they brought that out into full view, as they say it. Because, of course, you would have lost all your hope in churchianity and everything else, which, Yahuwah got ahead of with the remnant. And so, again, they were expecting no one to have any place to point their adoration and not know what to do. And so they would accept the doctrine of Lucifer. Yes, folks, this is where this is headed. And they want to destroy certain things in order to put the world in a mindset and a place where they can receive what they want to do. So they got to mess with you everywhere, all over the earth, until they can get everyone into the frame of mind that they want to get us into. Is it going to work? No, it's not going to work. No, it's not going to work. But that doesn't mean they're not going to try. Doesn't mean they're not going to try. It's not going to work, but they're still going to try. And the entire area, the entire region is reshaping. Now we're seeing the Saudi prince. We knew this was going to happen because he is very good friends with Trump. And so the Saudi prince is now stepping in as a power broker in Trump's New World Order. Isn't that interesting? Who saw that coming? What a shock, right, guys? As U.S. President Donald Trump pushes to end the war in Ukraine and upend the order of the Middle East, one fellow world leader is at the heart of both initiatives, Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And so, according to this report, MBS, as the oil-rich kingdom's de facto ruler, is known as one of the few global power brokers to enclose a close relationship with Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, while most Arab heads of state see him as critical in tackling a more erratic Washington. Well, he speaks Trump's language. They get along great. So I don't think he has too much trouble. He'll have too much trouble with the Trump administration. And didn't we hear they were talking about $600 billion investment during his administration that would be coming from Saudi Arabia? So Saudi Arabia clearly had a preference who they wanted to work with, and they did not want to work with folks on the other side of the aisle, right? So they picked their favorites, and they wanted to work with that side, and that's that. Doesn't make it any better. The two sides of the same bird. Remember that, folks. But it is interesting to see Saudi Arabia with two very big cities in its territory that do pertain to Bible prophecy sitting there. This could get interesting very quickly and maybe intentionally. So as a matter of fact, we're seeing, you can smell it, right? David's like, we can smell what's coming. Check this out. We're now dropping ultimatums all over the Middle East, right? Ultimatums now. Hey, you better let these hostages go by this time, blah, blah, blah. Ultimatum time, right? So what happens? Hamas, they complied. They let go of the hostages on Shabbat, like they said they would, and they complied. But guess what happened? Hezbollah says Israel must fully withdraw now from Lebanon by February 18th. So turnabout is fair play. Okay? So now the head of the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah said on Sunday that Israeli troops must withdraw from Lebanese territory in full by February 18th deadline, saying it had no pretext to maintain a military presence in any position in southern Lebanon. And under a truce brokered by Washington in November, Israeli troops were granted 60 days to withdraw from southern Lebanon, where they had waged a ground offensive against fighters from Iran-backed Hezbollah since early October. That deadline was extended to February 18, but Israel's military requested that it keep troops in 5 posts in southern Lebanon. Guess what, folks? This is about to get dicey. They didn't plan on going back. They wanted to take over that whole thing. That ain't going to work. So now they're going to have another front on their hands. We knew this because we watched this a year ago. We were wondering, why in the world are you opening a front over here when you got your hands full with Gaza and the West Bank right now? And now we're going to maybe find out why. Maybe they want that war. Maybe Israel wants that war. I said maybe Israel wants that war. Folks, it's about to get dangerous real fast, okay? And as a matter of fact, heavy equipment is showing up. And again, as a veteran, I share these things with you. And when I say I'm concerned about some of the things that I'm seeing, there's a reason for my concern. American B-52 heavy bombers have arrived in UK, which brings them within the range, guys, of the Middle East. It brings them within a 5-hour flight range, which is nothing for these big planes, okay? America's B-52 heavy bombers arriving in UK as tensions heat up in the Middle East, and 2 U.S. Air Force B-52 heavy bombers arrived unannounced at British Air Base. According to local media, maybe that's the reason why Putin's getting ready. And experts say they're meant to be a show of force against both Russia and Iran. The B-52 Strato Fortresses landed at the Royal Air Force Fairford base on Tuesday night, just 4 months after the last pair of nuclear-capable aircraft were spotted at the base for exercises across Europe and NATO airspace. So it isn't just Putin that's flexing right now. It's not just Putin. So yeah, Putin is flexing, no question. But so is Donald. Okay? This is not good. Let's hope they can go negotiate. Let's go negotiate a truce. Because if you guys start shooting, a lot of people are going to die. Okay? There's a lot of expectation that may very well happen. After all, the Bible does portend a day where mass numbers of people are removed. It doesn't say how. It does say in the book of Zechariah that their eyes will disappear from their sockets and their skin will fall off. So that sounds like a certain type of weapon. And they don't seem to be slowing down one bit. So Israel sees opening for strikes on Iranian nuclear sites as U.S. intelligence is finding this. And of course, assessments near end of Biden's term could concluded risks have increased as Tehran has been weakened. The notion that they've been weakened may increase the possibility of an actual attack. So this is very, very dangerous to hear this, unfortunately. And U.S. intelligence agencies concluded during the final days of the Biden administration that Israel is considering a significant strike on Iranian nuclear sites this year. So when you heard the reports that they say, hey, we can finish the job with Trump's support, that's what they mean. And unfortunately, it doesn't look good. If you're in the Middle East, it's going to be a difficult time. Okay. Switching back domestically, there are some things that are coming out now that have really been disturbing. One of the things that we knew, there were some very untoward experiments and things going on. I don't even want to read this headline, guys. I honestly do not even want to read this headline. I'm just putting it up here for you to read it. And this is on Remnant Watch right now. Go read this story. I don't even know what to say. This is so disturbing. This is so beyond disturbing, folks. Okay. And this is a discussion with Robert Kennedy Jr. And it is beyond words. I don't even know what to say. I don't know how we're not all as a nation truly mortified that anyone would be allowed to do certain things like that. And I truly hope that the book and everything that's in that book gets thrown at these guys who did such things, because it's just beyond wicked. I'm sorry, but that's just beyond wicked. So there are a lot of things going on domestically, a lot of things coming out in the light that's coming in. Yeah, I know. I don't even want to go over that story much, Jonathan. Okay. I know. And it's on Remnant Watch. You want to go read it. You want to watch the video, go ahead. I'm done with the story right now. I'm done with it. I don't even want to talk about it. It's that bad. It's that bad. And this is where we are, folks. This is where we are. Moving on, Navy pilot was forced to eject as jet crashes in San Diego. Whoo, California. Switching to California, U.S. Navy aircraft crash landed and 2 pilots were forced to emergency eject. It's just not a good week, a good month for aviation. What's going on with aviation? And by the way, guys, when we got done with last week's news update, I got off and I was all wrapped up and everything, and I just was sort of perusing. And then I see a story from Arizona, right here in Arizona, that in Scottsdale, another plane ran into a plane. I'm like, oh my goodness, these planes, this thing is getting ridiculous. It's the amount of aircraft issues and air accidents. It's this is unprecedented, folks. I've never ever seen anything like it. And there was another plane crash that just happened. Let me see if I can get this on the screen. Yes, here it is. 2 killed in a small plane crash at Metro Atlanta Airport. This just happened. The Covington Police Department investigating after 2 people were killed in a small plane crash Saturday night. So, yeah, it just continues. Police responded to the Covington Municipal Airport at before midnight after receiving a call from the Federal Aviation Administration. Now, guys, I have a stinking suspicion. David, good question. What do you think is going on here? Well, I got a suspicion that it might be the same thing that's affecting migration of birds. I know, odd, weird connection, right? But there's, let me see if I can find the story, but there is I think there might be. I don't know, guys. What do you think? This is really, really odd stuff, right? And so, hold on, let me see if I can pull it up here. I know it's on Remnant Watch, and I don't find it in the sequence. Let me quickly find it on here. Here you go. Experts are warning. Watch this, guys. Here, I'm put it on screen. Experts describe it as chaos as animal behavior has begun to change. We don't really know. It definitely would throw things off balance, right? So what's happening? According to WCAX3, the Vermont, go away. Department of Health found that winters in the state have increased by 4 degrees over the last half century, with every 2025 forecast, early 2025 forecast, looking mild once again in the Green Mountain State. But it's chaos, right? So we're seeing more and more reports of birds doing unusual things, right? And then there was also a report about the movement of the magnetic north, right? So what are we seeing here? What's going on? The level of change that's happening in the earth, pretty stark, pretty scary. And so, again, a lot of things that I don't know that we can we're going to have to get past them a little bit in order to be able to look back and then really understand, because some of this stuff is so wacky and so different that we don't have a point of reference for it. So that makes it tough, guys. There are some things, however, that we do definitely have a point of reference for. And this was really disturbing, guys. I don't know if you guys heard about this. This was seriously disturbing, especially after the white horse comment that was made. Did you hear about that? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. calling Trump the man on a white horse, which of course pertains to the book of Revelation directly. And then look at this, guys. This is a goat idol wrapped in money. That is actually a goat idol. Truth behind bizarre Trump Mar-a-Lago goat, guys, that has sparked outrage from Christians. Christians are not finding that a signed MAGA goat on display at Mar-a-Lago is the greatest of all time. Project GOAT, which stands for Global Offense Against Trafficking, is an initiative where 75-pound goat sculpture are auctioned off to raise funds to combat sex trafficking. Really? Okay. And they used a goat to do that with. Okay. And Christians, I can't imagine why, have criticized this goat on display at Mar-a-Lago, which is a sculpture for a Project Goat, and it's offensive. It might be more than offensive. It might be just reflective. That is a really good point. I didn't think of that, Patricia. That's a good one. Some kind of magnetic change. See, that raises a good point, a good call there. I don't know. We're gonna have to keep an eye out, but that one, yeah, I'm with you, Jonathan. I hung my head going, oh my gosh, this guy, he walks into things he doesn't even know what he's doing. I mean, this is the same one that appointed Paula White as his spiritual advisor. What more do I got to tell you, right? He needs help. Pray for him. Just pray for him, okay? It's a tough deal. He's got a tough deal. But, the world isn't waiting, and in politics isn't the solution. We need to pray. And we have to pray for the healing of the land. A 5.0 magnitude earthquake sends tremors across West Texas. How many know we got to pray for the healing of the land? Okay, you've got to pray for the healing of the land. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I will forgive their sin. I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin and I will heal their land. And if you don't know the land needs to be healed, you're not paying attention. A magnitude 5.0 earthquake was detected in West Texas. When do West Texas get earthquakes? They don't. The earthquake is at 1023, is a depth of 4 miles, and is the epicenter 33 miles northwest of Toyah, Texas, a town around 160 miles east of El Paso. Okay. And there are no immediate reports of any injuries. When do you hear about a earthquake in West Texas? The answer is never. So something unusual is happening here. Very unusual is going on. And there were several earthquakes up and down in California. I mean, that's not necessarily news, but it does indicate that there's more and more happening. There's off of the coast of California in the Cascadia subduction zone that is now shaking quite a bit, as well as off the east coast of the United States. There's also a massive number of shakes that are going on there. So there's a lot of earthquake activity. We also saw just off of Greece, Santorini, I think is the name of the island, and they've got a massive a volcanic activity going on there. So there's a lot shaking in the earth. The earth is shaking as prophesied. The scripture tells us, and he tells us that he will shake and shake again all that can be shaken. So these are all prophecies that are not the favorite prophecies of the last days, because everybody picks their favorite ones that they want to watch for. But there are a bunch of prophecies you need to be aware of. And one of the things that we knew that was going to happen was hard times would come economically, because the scripture foretells of a time when a whole day wages for a loaf of bread. And the U.S. judge is, now they're battling over this Doge, right? U.S. judge bars Doge from Treasury, but allows access to health and labor. And so basically they're battling back and forth over this thing. A federal judge has extended a block on Elon Musk's government cost-cutting team from accessing payment systems in the U.S. Treasury Department on Friday. It's temporary. That had to get lifted. Let me tell you something about this Doge, guys, real quick. This was genius, what these guys did. It was truly intelligent. They took Obama's created agency for digital accountability, some kind of digital accountability within the Obamacare system. And they already had like access to all their computer systems, access to all the data, access to all the mainframes and the databases and so forth for Obamacare purposes. So what he does is he goes into this already approved, already existing agency, renames it and repurposes it. So it's already got funding and it's already doing close to its original mission. So it's a slight deviation from its mission, but not much. And that's why they're literally pulling their hair out, because he didn't have to go get approval for it. He just he retrofitted an existing agency. Brilliant move. So that's why they have to go to court, and that's why the federal courts are not letting them get away with stopping it, because how could they now tell them they had to stop when they weren't able to stop this when it was for Obamacare, right? Because it was created by a president. So it now exists. And I thought that was genius, to take an existing agency and simply repurpose it that already had computer access to everybody's computers was just straight genius. Great move. So that's what's causing so much consternation. It is kind of fun. I got to admit, some of this is kind of fun to watch. some of these guys that we know. We're doing some pretty hinky things and watching them squirm's kind of fun, but some of this stuff's very serious, guys. Like, look at this. This is a very serious headline. It deals with a very serious issue that pertains to the most innocent of us all. And now they're suggesting the defunding of this organization, which I agree with. And so now Doge is coming for that. Oh boy, you're going to see some fireworks now. You're going to see some fireworks now. And this got nothing to do with parenting or with families. It has to do with the money generated from the byproduct of this wonderful concept. So because of the amount of money that we're talking about here, you're about to see some serious warfare over this, which I think is well overdue. So, but $75 billion in federal funding for 2 years is just a ridiculous amount of money for something like that. So, I'm grateful to see that there's cooler heads and intelligent thinking going on in that regard. And after all, we need babies. We need lots of babies. And look at this effort. Larry Ellison wants the U.S. to unify all national data and then feed it to AI. They're going all in with this AI, guys. They're going all in. Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison said during a conference this week that governments need to consolidate. They need to do it. Need to do it now. Consolidate data about citizens for the sake of AI. What? For the sake of AI? Oh my goodness. Please, let's save the AI for sake of AI. Some of the logic I see some of these people use is really crazy. And that in and of itself is a sign of the last days. Another one that is unfortunate, and we speak Beraka on all those that are dealing with this tonight. And those that are in harm's way, we pray for you and your families that you would escape harm's way. And this is a devastating thing that has happened. As a levee fails in Tennessee, flooding is the result, and 8 dead in Kentucky as rescues continue. A catastrophic and historic flooding event unfolded across portions of 4 states over the weekend, leading to a levee failure in Tennessee and leaving at least 8 people, including a child, dead in Kentucky, as a powerful storm system brought numerous threats to the eastern half of the United States. And Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear held a news conference Sunday afternoon where he announced a jump in fatalities and feared the number would continue to grow as search and rescue operations continued across the state. So please keep in prayer those that are in the Kentucky and Tennessee area because that is devastating. We believe this number is going to grow. Beshear said, "We hope it doesn't grow quickly or much larger." Officials in Tennessee also urged residents of Rives to evacuate and seek higher ground after a levee failed along the Obion River, leading to rapid onset flooding in the town and surrounding areas. And so again, not just all over the world, right here at home, here in the United States, and we're continuing to see more and more people become homeless, become economically destitute as a result. And this flooding that hit is, again, extensive flooding. And so it has really, it's been devastating. And this, again, is on top of how many different places have been flooded? How many different flood stories have we seen in just the last year? How many unprecedented floods? Unprecedented rains, 100-year rains. We've seen so much of this, and it doesn't seem to be any end in sight. And so, folks, let's keep praying for those in, again, harm's way. Let's have compassion on those that have to relocate now. That's a big deal for them, and it's a very devastating situation. At least, again, 8 people have died, and it does look like that number is probably going to go up. So please keep them in prayer, folks, and be compassionate towards those that are in trouble. Alaska is also experiencing some rumbling, and that's under another volcano. So earthquakes are rumbling under Alaska, officials said. And is it about to erupt? I don't know. Do you know? Volcanoes near Alaska, most populous city, is showing signs it could be headed toward an eruption, officials said. Mount Spur, which sits about 75 miles west of Anchorage, which means the prevailing winds would bring that to Anchorage, has seen volcanic unrest for the last 10 months, including increased number of earthquakes, according to a February 6th statement from the Alaska Volcano Observatory. And folks, we continue to see this. So does this portend, does this speak to the last days? Yes, it does. I believe the earth is about to vomit out its inhabitants, as the scripture foretold. So it is happening, and it's not maybe the way we thought. Things are not always happening the way we think they should, but they are happening. And oh, by the way, I meant to share this. Hamas did, by the way, they did free Israeli hostages on Saturday as originally planned. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I forgot to mention that earlier, and that was done. So hopefully that will cool some things, but I think there's too much dedication to this conflict that we're going to see that. Getting back here on the domestic side, those of you that are having a little fun watching the Musk show, well, he's calling for U.S. government to delete entire agencies, remove the weed of the roots of the weed. I think we need to delete entire agencies as opposed to leave part of them behind. It's kind of like leaving a weed. The South African-born engineer and tech entrepreneur has been named by Trump as a special government employee and the head of the new entity under the administration called the Department of Government Efficiency. And of course, the U.S. government, according to him, needs to delete entire agencies in a cost and efficiency drive. Tech billionaire and Tesla co-founder and CEO Elon Musk said Thursday, when asked about whether the changes he is implementing as part of President Donald Trump's administration will last beyond Trump's term. I think we need to delete entire agencies as opposed to leave part of them behind. It's kind of like leaving a weed. If you don't remove the roots of the weed, then it's easy for the weed to grow back. I can't agree more. I think half the agencies that they've created, they could delete and nobody would miss them except the people that worked there and got paid. So this is interesting, what's happening. And it's going to affect the economy, folks. So, on the one hand, we're happy to see this, but that's a bunch of people that become unemployed, and they're now competing for jobs. So there is that. By the way, the auto industry is now reeling as a result of the tariffs, and they are basically saying, according to Barron's, it's a paid one, so I'm not going to take you there, but Ford is failing, and CEO says Trump tariffs will damage U.S. auto industry. Ford stock is falling, and Ford is falling for reasons that have nothing to do with the tariffs. Their tariffs don't affect domestic sales, and they went and put too much of their business overseas, and now they're stuck. So they're going to have to move some of their manufacturing domestic, which is, I think, the intention of the tariffs. You can avoid the tariffs by restarting that parts plant and employing the 200 people that you laid off, 15 years ago, whenever it was. That's how that's going to work. So the U.S. is not going to back off. I think this is a policy is going to continue, which is good long-term, but short-term is going to be suffering. So just understand that. And that's how come we're seeing things like this, where banks are closing and more than 100 branches in 3 weeks as closures bloodbath continues in 2025. Major U.S. banks shut more than 100 locations in just 3 weeks as local branch bloodbath continues. Banks filed notice to shut down 107 locations between January 12th, February 6th, as experts warn that 2025 could be the worst year yet for closures, for banking closures. So banking is suffering. Why? Because they're making a massive transition right now. And some are calling it the reset. Some are calling it other things. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's going to continue to happen, and it's going to continue to drain resource from other things. Moving on, we've noticed that there's an uptick in recalls going on again. So guys, pay attention to these recalls. Quaker Oats recall updated to most serious category as FDA sounds an alarm on its pancake mix. Consumers with milk allergies are urged to discard recalled products. So they continue this recall thing. It continues to affect our confidence. Officials from the Food and Drug Administration recently escalated the recall of certain Quaker Oats pancake mixes earlier this week, increasing the recall category to the most serious level. And the Quaker Oats Company, a subsidiary of Pepsi, I mean, you didn't know that. I bet you didn't know that. Previously announced a limited recall of certain boxes of Pearl Milling Company, original pancake and waffle mix. And of course, I don't know why they have a picture of Quaker oats here, because this is the product that they're talking about. So that's interesting. Why are they showing Quaker oats when Quaker oats isn't what's being recalled? This is what's being recalled. So just so you know, buttermilk and the whole wheat, these are being recalled, probably because something with the buttermilk they tried to put in the mix did not stay stable or something. I don't know. Something happened. So recall. Neither one of those do we use. So we don't use those mixes. So they don't affect us. Hope you guys don't use those. Okay. And I already told you about the small plane crash. Oh, did you guys hear? Talk about West Texas. Did you hear that West Texas has a measles outbreak? I didn't even hear this till just today. I didn't know this. Yeah, there's a measles outbreak. I thought we dealt with measles like so long ago, but here we are again. The measles outbreak, first reported in Gaines County, Texas, has doubled to 48 cases since a count released earlier this week. I remember this. Remember when we were kids? Everybody got the measles. Yeah. Some parents sent you over to friend's house to get it so you can get it over with. I'm not even kidding. 42 cases are reported in Gaines County. Surrounding counties have been also reported cases. 3 in Terry County, 2 in Yoakum County, and 1 in Lynn County. So, I mean, I grew up with all of that. We grew up with people getting the measles, people getting the mumps. I had the mumps, and you get over it. You recover. And I mean, it can be very, very harmful, but there's a lot of good treatment out there. So again, more fear mongering, more attempts to, get everybody going in the wrong direction. And I'm very happy to see that there are government officials and those that are on the other track. They're going the other way. Okay. Louisiana Health Department says it will stop promoting mass you-know-whats. Here's what that could mean. And I love that. In a surprise announcement, Louisiana Surgeon General announced late Thursday that the state health department will no longer promote these mass things. In a memo to staff members, Dr. Ralph Abraham describes that as one tool in a toolbox to combat several illnesses. Exactly. This is the way we grew up. It's like, well, it may be one thing, but what about other things? And that was while they were soft pedaling it, right? Now they're hard pedaling it. So they don't really want to talk about alternatives like ivermectin or other things that, because you wouldn't want to remove parasites. You wouldn't want to do that. And why would you want to remove parasites? And why are you guys, who brought up parasites? And why are we talking about parasites? Ivermectin and parasites. Why would we even mention that? Don't mention that. Don't talk about that. A U.S. judge bars must. I'm just kidding. Don't mention that ivermectin. Don't mention parasites. And don't mention that they're changing things. My goodness. How many know that he's continuing this Trump guy? He's a fun guy. Trump officials signal potential changes in NOAA. What is this? The National Oceanic, and I don't know what the other two stand for. I always forget those. Atmospheric Administration. That's it. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Federal workers at NOAA are on high alert as they monitor signs of a potential Trump administration overhaul of one of the government's main scientific agencies. Well, you might need an overhaul. I think everything should be looked at. I think everybody should be fired. I think that's a really good policy. I remember a pastor, and I adopted that policy. I really like it. He would fire everybody. Yeah, his whole entire team. Had a big church too, a Living Word up in the Twin Cities, real big church. And he would fire his entire staff and then bring them in one at a time. And each one of them had to tell him why they should have their job back. Great strategy. And he made them sell themselves, right? Sell themselves back to the ministry and express how they, what their vision is and what their plans are and so forth. Brilliant. So I don't know, just thought I'd share that. I think sometimes you should fire everybody, make them rehire. But I'm radical. What do I know? And there's some really disturbing things, unfortunately, happening as we wrap up for today. And this is really sad to see. And it is, again, another reminder that we need to keep our children really close to us. And we need to be careful about where we put them for education and other things. A teacher had a sexual relationship with a special needs student and then asked him to bring a gun to school to shoot a colleague. How cool. And so a twisted Colorado teacher who started a sick relationship with a special needs student sent thousands of messages to him, ordered the child to bring a gun to class to shoot her colleague, and introduced him to fentanyl, prosecutors say. So these parents, these poor people, took their child and sent him over there thinking he was getting good extra attention from a teacher, and little did he know that that teacher had other plans, right? So this is a very, very disturbing reality and something that we need to be a little bit more paying attention to. Unfortunately, again, the demonic continues and it goes unabated. And unfortunately, we have to share these stories because this is what we're fighting. And this is the war, folks. This is why we need to pray for our neighbors, for our brothers and sisters, for our friends. This is why we need intervention. This is why when someone is upset or unhappy in a relationship, that it shouldn't be taken so lightly. It should be an all hands on deck, let's get it fixed situation. Too many people take lightly stress in relationships and drama in relationships, but these are the things that turn deadly. If you ask police officers, the most dangerous um, calls to go on are domestic violence calls. Most dangerous. Okay. And here's more evidence of that. Unfortunately, Wyoming mom shoots 4 daughters and then killed 3 before turning gun on herself in horrifying murder suicide. And I don't know what the husband's thinking, right? But 3 young girls are dead, another in serious condition. That the mother shot at them in the head before turning the gun on herself in Wyoming, authorities say. The mom called 911 on Monday afternoon to report that her 4 daughters had been shot in her home in Bighorn County, the local sheriff official said. And I mean, look at her. Beautiful girl, beautiful lady, beautiful mom. Okay. You would think by looking at her, got the world under control, like having a great life, right? 32-year-old Tranielle Harshman, who police say shot her 4 daughters, then herself. Where would you get that impression? By looking at that picture? You can't. The demonic hide in ways you don't expect. The woman, who local media later identified as 32-year-old Tranielle Harshman, told the dispatcher where the girls were located in the house before abruptly cutting off the call. And when officers arrived, they discovered the girls with gunshot wounds to their heads along with their mother. Oh. If you can tell me what else besides a demon would inspire something so wicked, I'm all ears. But unfortunately, we know the answer. Only wicked spirits of evil that come to steal, kill, and destroy bring off these kinds of things. And this is why we must pray. This is why we must continue to extend an arm of love, why we must speak cover over people, why we must come against these demonic forces. And when we see one of our brethren not doing well, don't take it for granted that they'll be all right. Jump in. Just yesterday, I saw one of my brethren starting to pop off on Facebook. Now, as it turned out, he was all right, and we were able to calm that down. But how many know that those things can get out of control? And so it is something that we should never take lightly. We should always mitigate and intervene. And whenever you can, if someone is at a 10, bring them to an 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, walk them down to 1. Okay, take that number 10 heated anger and all that. Don't leave people there. Walk them down. Walk them down. Keep walking them down. Talk to them. Minister to them. Heal them. Pray for them. Many times people get in arguments. What they really should just do is stop and pray for their partner or for their friend or for somebody. And maybe that would do what their words could not do. Maybe that would help where your logic and your reasoning and your conversation is not helping. Stop and pray. Stop and ask Yahuwah to lend you help in this time of need, to put a hedge, even a double hedge about them, that the demonic will take the matter no further. Always be careful with this, folks, because it only takes a little leaven to leaven the entire lump. And so it unfortunately is true that we are going to continue to see more demonic manifestations as the day approaches, and you will see the war break out between brother and brother. And so those are things that are still to come as we see the day approaching. All the more reason for us to renew our effort, renew our zeal, renew our commitment to the King and his kingdom, and to share the good news while we can. While we have opportunity, let us do good to the household of faith. Well, that's it for tonight. I pray this broadcast has been a bit of caught to you. It certainly is our intention to do so. Thank you so much for joining us. Shalom.